All right. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to week 2 of our reset meeting. I hope you really ate well this past week as you prepared. I know nobody cheated, nobody, took advantage of Sounds like you did. I think you did. But we're going to talk tonight a little bit with Matt. Before Matt gets back up here, I want to give you a couple of things. As we sort of rolled this out and told the church what we were doing, we had different people come to us and say, well, we'd like to offer this or we'd like to offer that to help along the journey as you do this. So Rise Cycle Company is a cycle studio in the area that when COVID hit, they actually used our parking lot for quite a while, and we became really good friends with them and kind of built a relationship with them. And so Kelsey, their owner, was here at church that Sunday that we launched this whole reset idea, and she came up to me afterwards and she said, I want to help. I want to do something. And so Kelsey has offered this really great deal, which is you can get your first 2 classes. Your first class is free with the code New Vintage, so you can go check it out if you like it. If you go see, okay, I'm going to go do some cycling, and then you get there, you do it one time, and you hate it, it's free, okay? So, but we don't want that to happen. If you do like it, then they're going to give you basically half off for these next 21 days. So you can unlimited ride as much as you want for the next 21 days. I think it's $115, which is normally it's much more expensive than that for the month. So they're doing that in fact, we talked to Kelsey, and she said this is basically what I'm just going to have to pay my instructors to be there. So if you like it, great. If you don't like it, cool. Or if you just wanted to go work out the old-fashioned way, you can do that as well. But this is how you do it. There's a code on there. What is there a code, Christy? Just New Vintage? Okay, just New Vintage. First-time riders only. It's your first 2 are free, or your first 1 is free? Your first 2 are free. First 2 rides are free. So you get 2 tries to check it out. All right? So just something from Kelsey to try and help us get in shape and get dialed in. If that's not your thing, no worries, no big deal. But she wanted to throw that out there for you guys. So without any further ado, Matt is going to come back up. As you can see, we've got, it looks like we're sponsored by Oliver's. But Matt, I want you to tell us the story of why you have this many Oliver's bags in your possession. All right? So give it up for Matt. Thanks, Matt, for being here.
Okay, there we go. All right. Such more authority when you hear that boom voice. All right. So, yeah, funny story about the Olivers. With this last year and some change of COVID, my wife and I try to, support local and shop at Oliver's, and so we go in there all the time. And then, one day they say, sorry, you can't bring your own bags in. We're like, all right, bummer. So they, gave us bags, and over time we just slowly amassed a huge thing. I just felt bad for throwing out like perfectly good bags. I'm going, what do I do? Just use this as like kindling? I don't know. So anyway, didn't get the chance to burning them to keep me warm or anything. But yeah, inside each of these bags, you will find your full kit. We'll go over the contents of that in a little bit. But first, I just want to say welcome to everybody who's here. Thank you for coming back, and it's good to see your faces, and more of your face anyway. And for all of you who are tuning in online, we have quite a few people who are tuning in from afar, so that's awesome. And then welcome to some of the first timers. We've been talking to people who may be new to New Vintage, or you are usually not part of this community, but they found us through this reset. So I just want to extend a welcome to them. So if you see some new faces, just say hi. And they might be wondering, like, hey, why are we doing the reset at this church? What's going on? Well, in case you missed it, there are in huge letters on the wall when you walk in, it says "For the City," and you'll see people with their shirts on that say "For the City." And I just love that, because that's what this reset is going to be helping us do. If in order to be for the city, we need to be for ourselves first, and not in a selfish way, not like me first, but if we again put our health first, and we look, feel, perform the best, then when we go out for our city and our community, then we can be the people that we really want to be and shine the most. So there's a correction too that I want to talk before we kind of get into things. So let's go to the next slide. I think I put it up here. Last week I gave you guys a 14-day challenge by mistake. So I told you it was going to end a week early. We just moved it to the 13th is going to be that end date. Sorry, not sorry, okay? 21 days, I'm already giving you some leeway. Usually, again, we do this in like a 30-day challenge. But 21 days is kind of like that sweet spot. Like day 14 through 21, like that's when you're really hitting your groove. Because the first couple days, I'll be honest, it can be kind of like you're going through maybe like some more caffeine withdrawals, or if you're not drinking alcohol, you can kind of experience some things. So by day 14, by day 21, you're nourishing yourself. You're giving your body the things it needs, and you start really kind of picking up the speed and getting that energy. So you're welcome for adding time on. You're not buying it, so that's okay. Again, so why are we doing a metabolic reset? Why are we so focused on metabolism? And this isn't just another crash diet. Because when I announced this, somebody said, "Yeah, well, isn't it bad to just do these crash diets?" I go, "Yeah, but we're not nobody's crashing. We shouldn't be crashing. We're doing a metabolic reset. We're measuring how our metabolism works with blood sugar and how we respond to certain foods in the beginning. We go through this 21-day challenge, and then we end by retesting and seeing how we've influenced our own metabolism, okay? So just like a phone, just like a smartphone that's kind of going wonky, or your internet modem that's not working, unplug that, wait 5 seconds, plug it back in. That reset, that's what we're looking for, okay? You're probably going to hear me saying, like, we can't do this, we can't eat that, we can't do this, no to this, no to this. But that's not the point. The point is not to like tell you can never eat this way again for the rest of your life. You can never have this food or that food. This is to educate you. This is to tell you, hey, my body responds to this food a certain way. So yeah, even though I derive 5 minutes of mouth enjoyment from this food, my body isn't doing well with it. So this is a teaching tool for y'all. All right, so. And that kind of goes along with what Darren said last Sunday. It was like, all things are permissible, like go for it, but it doesn't mean all things are beneficial, right? And so that's what we want to find out. What's beneficial for one person versus the next person, because we're all unique in our metabolism. All right, let's see what's going on the next slide here. Last week, you didn't miss anything if this is your first week, by the way. We just kind of slowly on-ramped to an on-ramp today. So we're just on-ramping a lot. But no, essentially what we were doing was kind of getting the concepts of why we're doing this. And last week we covered this. These are the things that we want to look at. We don't want to just jump to medication when our body's starting to go kind of crazy. We need to address certain things first. So that's things like the industrialized diet, things that our body was never designed for. Physical activity, sleep deprivation, chronic stress, environmental toxins, disrupted gut microbia, and any combination of those things in between. If we can fix those things, we see the body just knows what to do. We can heal from some incredible stuff, and I've seen it with my patients. So let's go to the next slide. This was just kind of another review. If we address the bottom of the pyramid, the foundation, we always want to address the foundation, just like a house, The foundation has to be strong in order for these other things to work. Next slide. So this week, this is all about getting you ready. If you fail to plan, you're planning to fail, okay? So my goal for you is to feel like you're ready to start next Tuesday, hit the ground running, boom, I can do this. Again, I don't expect you guys to start tonight or tomorrow and eat perfectly. In fact, no one's going to eat perfectly, including myself. Perfect is the enemy of good. We want to see progress. We don't want to see perfection. Okay, we want to start learning what we can eat and what we can't. But in order to do that, we do need to step back and give our body the whole foods it needs and get rid of some of the toxic stuff that it is. Some of you may have handouts already. Some of you don't. Don't worry if you do not have a handout yet. They're on the way out. But I'm going to go over some of these slides, and then you'll be able to pick that up on your way out. But that's going to be your starter pack. That's what's going to help you get started on the right foot. So let's go to the next slide. In these, I'm not going to give these to you yet because I've made that mistake in the past. Like, here you go, and then I start talking, and everybody's just like, and all I hear is just like a bunch of paper unraveling like Christmas, So I have a website set up for you, and on your handout you can just type in the website. It'll give you most of what you see here. It's going to give you a video on how to test your blood sugar. So in case you forget anything tonight, you should be all set up, even without me. So tomorrow you wake up, you go, what did he say? You can just go right on that website. It's on the handouts. It's www.soulshinecairo.com and then /reset. And we'll get that out to you again. But you're going to find your starter packet. That's the sheets that some of you have. This is goal setting right now. I want you guys to put yourself in that mindset or yourself in about 21 days from now. And what do you want to accomplish? What do you want to see come out of this? Because my goal will be different from your goal, and we're both going to be doing it together. So, again, I don't expect somebody to go run a marathon. But if you sign up for a spin class and you haven't been to a group fitness class in over a year, hey, that's awesome. That's progress. So, those are the things that we want to see you moving forward out of this kind of last year and a half where everything was kind of shut down and not being able to do the things that you really love. So we're going to find in that starter pack there's also a carb test sheet, and the carb test sheet is what you're going to be doing to record when you do get a result from your blood sugar. And in the medical model, what we do is we do a oral glucose tolerance test where they give you this nice, terrible, just god-awful kind of like a solution of just pure sugar, and then they test you. Well, you test, and then you probably crash, and it's a very unhealthy test, but we're going to be doing that with food so that you're not having to go through this kind of solution of glucose and just having that like hit your bloodstream in a very unhealthy and unnatural way. We're going to do it with food so that you get a sense of what your oral glucose tolerance, how is your body affected by carbohydrates, and that's going to be a reflection of your blood sugar. And those are the things that we're going to be recording. And you'll do that on 2 different days. So between today and next meeting, I'd like you to do 2 of those. For people at home, or if you're here without a glucometer to test, that's fine. You can still follow along, do this 21-day challenge, and just still fill out some of those things like your mindset, your measurements. There's a few things that we'll go over measurement-wise. So one of them is a scale, but the scale isn't always the proper way to measure progress, right? Because if you are doing a lot of things at once, you might be cleaning up your diet, losing fat, and maybe you're at the gym and you're starting to gain muscle. So you're going to not see that needle move very much on the scale, right? So there's some other things like hip to waist ratio is kind of a nice general measurement for where we're carrying body fat or where our proportions should be. So I have all that in there in those kits for you, okay? So yeah, you're going to have a glucometer or a blood sugar monitor. It goes by different names. When you hear me say blood glucose and blood sugar, they're kind of the same. They're interchangeable. So you'll have one of those. Everyone will have those. If you're here with a spouse or partner or a child or a friend, you guys can share the glucometer. There's nothing wrong with that. And there should be plenty of test strips in there for this challenge and beyond. So we've given you about 50 of those. You can test until your fingers are just numb and you can't feel anything, but I wouldn't advise it. So you can share one. You don't have to have 2 per person unless you have very different work schedules or schedules like that. So you're going to find the test strips. Like I said, you'll have plenty of those. And again, we'll go over the instructions on how to do that. And push button lancets are a single disposable way to prick your finger. And we'll show you how to do that as well when we get there. And those are single use, so you cap them off at the end. Bring them in with you next on each visit. I'll have a sharps container that you can dispose of them appropriately that way. So that'll be here every week for you to do that. You can just kind of drop them off as you come in for that. And then alcohol swabs. So technically, you don't need alcohol swabs to clean your finger before you test. You can just simply do a hand wash. If you do use these alcohol swabs, we have plenty of them in there for you. And you just let it dry. And again, I'm explaining a little bit of this right now, but we'll go into more detail in case you're like, wait, what? I've never done this before. Don't worry, we got you. All right, let's go to the next slide. I just like this, it's a little blurry, but this idea of mismatch. What our genes were designed for and what our current environment looks like is such a mismatch with the amazing things that we have, like technology and cars and chairs and things like that. But when you look at it from a long, long perspective and you look back at what our ancestors did, it's like a square peg in a round hole. And we really have to step back and understand what are our bodies designed for. And our bodies were designed to eat whole foods, unprocessed foods, get our nutrients through foods, not necessarily supplements, right? But modern problems sometimes need modern solutions too. That's the other end of that. So this is the basis of where we get this reset nutritional approach. And some of you have maybe done Whole30 in the past or paleo. It's going to look really similar to that. It's basically whole foods, low inflammatory diet. And I will do my best to explain to you why there are some of the no categories, because you're going to see some of those and you're going to be like, wait, I thought that was healthy. Like, I was told this is good for me and that's good for me. But we're going to kind of dispel some common myths. So let's get into the next slide. And here it is. Okay, so this is in your packets. This will be on the website, so if I'm standing in the way, don't worry. I have to stand right where I was supposed to stand because I was like in the dark last time. So basically what we're doing, we're focusing on fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, proteins from animals. These are the things that if you take away all modern processing and technology and all of this stuff, we're left with most of these things, right? This is what our bodies have adapted to over thousands and thousands and thousands of generations. Not even, say, 200 years ago did we have access to Doritos and Cheetos and cheese puffs and stuff. And with time, yeah, we're seeing even more modern and ultra-processed foods. So let's go into the no category, because that's where I just want to rip the Band-Aid off, all right? I know you guys are just going to say, oh my gosh, what are we getting ourselves into? Or I'm out of here. But no dairy. Okay, it's like, what the heck? Cheese tastes amazing. I know, right? Yeah, I'm going to get a lot of booze. I already have. So we've heard benefits of dairy, right? They're like calcium, good for your bones. It tastes great, obviously, right? It's full of nutrients. But think about how milk has been packaged by nature. It comes right out of an udder, and it's not homogenized, and it's not pasteurized. But what do we drink? We mess with it, we heat it, we kill the beneficial bacteria. Now we're left with a dead food. And life needs life. And so we don't understand this sometimes when we just kind of look at 2 cartons of milk. But in order to break down and to extract most of the nutrients through that, we do need those living organisms, those beneficial bacteria, because we actually have more bacteria in and on us, on our skin and in our digestive tract, than we actually do self cells. Does that make sense? That's kind of, so I'm just walking around like transporting these little bugs around going, okay, where do you guys want to go today? Like, there's more of them than there are of me. So they must have a huge, profound effect on us, right? And most of us who've been on antibiotics, there's a complete kind of wiping and carpet bombing of those beneficial bacteria in our guts. So raw dairy is kind of under attack, actually. There's a lot of states out there who have outlawed it. The ag departments have tried to shut down these basically farms that have been doing it for, thousands of generations. And I'm not here to say like, you need to eat raw dairy. But what we're going to do is we're going to remove dairy completely, with the exception of butter, because butter doesn't have nearly as much of the problematic molecules in it. So dairy is still fine, or butter is still fine rather. But when we start to reintroduce these foods, you might want to think about going to a farmer's market or going somewhere that they offer this like raw milk or raw dairy products to see if your body tolerates that well. Because not only are you getting the dairy, you're getting what nature packed in with it, which is the beneficial bacteria to help you break down those things. Okay? Yeah. Okay, the question was, what about probiotics that they add to yogurt? And probiotics are very beneficial. Like we talked about, modern problems sometimes require modern solutions. So when they've extracted some of that and they've reintroduced some of these probiotics, it's kind of like when they strip wheat and grains of all their things and then they enrich it, right? Enriched flour with other vitamins. It's always good to try and get that prepackaged right from nature, because probiotics only contain a certain number and a certain species, and we don't even understand all of the different species of bacteria and probiotics yet. So there might be a limited amount in those products when they reintroduce them. Fermented foods are a great option. So if you're like, I need my yogurt, a lot of us like yogurt. If you need an option, coconut yogurt is a great option because it doesn't have those dairy proteins and it's full of those beneficial bacteria. So yeah, good question. Did that answer the question? Okay. Yeah, thanks. All right, so next category. This one is probably the ultimate, most difficult one to escape, is grains and pseudo grains. Pseudo grains are like these weird things you probably never heard of, either like teff and sorghum and a bunch of other amaranth and things like that. Don't worry about them. If you've never eaten them, you're not missing much. I grew up Italian. My mom's 100% Italian, so every meal was not only bread, but pasta, and then a backup pasta dish. It was just like Carb City, grains everywhere. Gene and Diane, you guys are probably going to kill me for this because they are like our Italian travelers. And here's an interesting thing about this. So if you ever have traveled to Europe, they have outlawed the types of wheat that we have here. So far, as far as I know, that may be changing, I don't know, but they do not allow GMO foods. A lot of them are very strict on Roundup, which is a herbicide, an insecticide, herbicide, sorry. When you're eating modern day wheat, like 99.9% of the wheat that we consume here in the U.S., whether it's organic, whether it's been sprouted, whether it's Dave's Killer Bread or your local bakery, it's modern dwarf wheat is what we call it. Modern dwarf wheat has been genetically altered from what wheat used to be back in the day. Because it was like, hey, bread's the thing that's keeping us, going, right? What farmers have done over time is they've genetically selected for the biggest yields and the most gluten to give bread and wheat and dough that characteristically kind of gluten, if you've heard of that, gluten-free diets. Gluten comes from the Latin glue, to hold together, right? So we have not had wheat engineered or altered or genetically chosen for our health. It's what's the most yield we can get, and what are the most tasteful characteristics that we can get out of that. That becomes a problem, because here we are kind of coexisting with wheat, and then all of a sudden it takes this like weird left turn into getting hybridized and dwarfed and genetically altered along the way. And our bodies do not recognize it as the same wheat it was 60, 70, 80 years ago. If you travel, and there are some places online that you can buy heirloom wheat, emmer and einkorn, and there's a couple good books. One of them I have here, Grain Brain, talks a lot about this. Dr. David Perlmutter is a neurologist. He has seen his patients who have nervous system issues, things like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, seen them improve when they start to remove heavy grain diets out of their lifestyle. Another one, End of Alzheimer's. This is written by a local medical doctor, Dale Bredesen, is down in Novato. They talk about cognitively our brains, since we have such a grain-heavy diet, that they're starting to shift away from those things and getting people on you guessed it, whole foods, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and proteins, and seeing cognitive improvements with this. The other book I didn't bring with me is Wheat Belly, and that talks about just this massive adipose tissue that we start to see, and it's a marker for insulin resistance, inflammation, things like that. So this is going to be a tough one, because grains can actually bind and not only give us digestive issues or make us overweight, they can cause inflammation here or in our brains. There is a molecule in wheat called gluteomorphin, and morphin comes from morphine. It has that same addictive quality to it as some of these things. And I've seen it. I run these labs on my patients, and sure enough, it comes back positive. And they're like, yeah, I just get these cravings for wheat. So if you're one of those people who are feeling like, I need to have that grain-based thing, that could be one of the issues you're going through. So you're going to have to go through those cold sweats. Yeah. Like I said, I'm giving you a week to clear all that stuff out. So if it looks like crackers and breads and chips and things like that, all those grains have to go. Question? Oats are going to be a pseudo grain, yeah. And it's not just wheat. We're looking at things like corn and oats and things. There's something in the body, in the immune system, which we've heard a lot about with COVID, can tag, if your body doesn't do well with wheat, it can tag other things like the proteins in oats and say, that looks really awfully close. We're going to cause inflammation there as well. So there's what we call cross-reactivity that happens. So, yeah. Good question. So then people go, what the heck do I eat for breakfast, right? Because we have been told it's either cereal, hot or cold cereal, bread, bagels, toast. And now you wonder why we see America is like one of the most overweight or unhealthy populations out there. We've been sold this bill of good that your breakfast has to have healthy whole grains in it. And that's not the full story. If you go back 100 years ago, or you go to different countries and different ethnicities, yeah, there might be some of those things involved, but it's probably not the mainstay of that diet. We go back and it's more of maybe some eggs with some other protein, things like that. Why? Well, we're going to get into it, but protein is the most satiating or satiety-driving of these macronutrients: carbs, fats, proteins. Protein is what keeps you feeling full. And when we're not getting enough, our brain searches for it and goes, I need something. Just give me anything, because I'm still hungry. Okay? Refined processed foods, that's pretty much all fast foods to some degree. I can't even attest to if it's actually meat in some of those things. I can't say whether or not. I don't know enough. And all I know is that I've watched the videos on YouTube where they put the Big Mac on the shelf and they do a time lapse of 30 days and it still looks exactly the same. And I'm going, something's not right there. But sugar is going to fall into that, any refined sugar. So again, sugar comes to us naturally in nature. It comes in fruit, right? So, but having said that, fruit has fiber in it to slow that hit of sugar to us. It's not like a teaspoon in your coffee where it's liquid sugar just hitting your bloodstream going, boom, let's go. You have to have that combination of fiber to slow down some of that sugar intake. So in order to get the same amount of sugar in a can of soda, a can of Coca-Cola, you have to chew through 8 feet of sugar cane. Now, I'm not doing that, and I don't think any of you are doing that, but I would be really tired after the first 2 inches of just noshing on that stuff. Yeah, another question? Stevia. Okay, good question. So the answer is what about stevia? Can I add that to certain things? Here's the thing. It does come from a natural leaf for the most part. There are better forms of it than others. I think Costco sells Truvia here locally, and that's a blend. There's some other sugar alcohols and things like that. We want to try to avoid those things. But stevia by itself is fine. It doesn't cause our blood sugar and our metabolism to go haywire. But if it causes you to overeat, then just check yourself a little bit. If you're I'm adding this to everything, I'm baking, gluten-free or grain-free this and that, and you're just overdoing it because you get that satisfying taste from stevia, that might be a trigger food for you. You might need to just back off. But if it's just some stevia in your coffee in the morning, and that's it, then that seems to be fine. Or sometimes if you want to mix it into, the coconut yogurt, for example, it comes in an unsweetened form. You can add maybe a little bit of that to it, or some berries. Berries, blueberries, things like that, those tend to have a lower glycemic load on our blood sugar. So, yeah, try to stick with that. So, another question? Okay. Okay. Yeah, raw honey also, just like dairy, comes with its own natural enzymes to it. The problem is when we heat it up or pasteurize it and it's not raw anymore, then it just looks like sugar to our body. Boom. So if it's just a teaspoon, again, and it's not causing you to overeat, that should be fine. The cool thing is you can do your blood sugar test with some honey, and you'll see the instructions, because you can test your blood sugar with things like white rice, honey. There's a couple other things there, and see what your body does with it versus if anybody else is interested. So you'll see how you tolerate it pretty well. Legumes. So peanuts are actually not nuts. They come from a legume family, and just like soy. This one's an interesting one. Soy is kind of one of those factory farm things. So again, you're dealing with sometimes a lot of herbicides, pesticides. If it's organic, soy can have some disrupting things in it. So they call them anti-nutrients, like things like phytates, which actually bind to good things, like when we eat, say, for example, other foods with minerals in them. These phytates can bind to things that we need, and it doesn't allow us to absorb it. And that's not good. Wheat and some other grains do that as well. There's a whole book called The Plant Paradox on this stuff, if you guys are interested. And he talks about lectins, phytates, things that don't allow us to get the full nutrients through our body. Now, I'm not saying, again, you can't ever have these things again, but we want to just kind of remove them, let our inflammation kind of come down, and then we can reintroduce them after the 21 days, and then see, hey, how do I respond to this? Maybe you have like a bowl of edamame or soybeans like at sushi or something, and you wake up next day feeling fine. Yeah, it's probably a safe food for you. But for the next person who might have some hormonal issues, soy can look like estrogen. It's called a phytoestrogen, and it mimics the estrogen molecule in our body, and that can cause some significant hormone issues for people who have an imbalance there. All right, so vegetable oils. Vegetable oils sounds great at first. It's like, hey, vegetables, cool. I get my vegetables through my oil, right? But unfortunately, these things are crazy processed. It's not like they take broccoli and like wring it out and be like, all right, there's my vegetable oil, sweet. And just it's like there are solvents that they use, and it looks like you can look one of these videos up online, and it looks like a sewage system that they're like mixing this stuff in. Honestly, we wouldn't have vegetable oils if it wasn't for industrialization with solvents and things like that. So we're staying away from that. We're going to focus on things that you can actually kind of squeeze out, like coconut oil, that's just cold pressed like that, olive oil, avocado oil, nut oils like macadamia nut oil. There's a lot of different options there. But yeah, we just want to stay away from some of these industrialized seed oils. All right, let's see here. So we've kind of gone through the nose, and I haven't had anything thrown at me yet, but hopefully you guys are hanging in there. At the bottom, and you guys can read this, it's a little hard to read up here, but the things in red stimulate inflammation. That's what we're really trying to control with a cleaned up diet. They can irritate the gut, hormone dysregulation, difficult to digest for some people, and they're not as nutritious. I mean, we want to give ourselves, our brains, our bodies. If we're also going to look at the mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical side of this reset, like in physical training, you want to be able to recover from that. The benefits don't come from you going out on your walk or going to your spin class or lifting weights. It comes from your ability to recover from that. So if you're under recovering with poor nutrition, you're kind of spinning your wheels. You're shortchanging yourself. You're not getting the most that you can out of it. All right, so let's go to the next slide. You're going to find a couple of these in your packets. Don't worry, again, if you don't have it in front of you. You can grab it on the way out. I'm trying to give you as much option as possible. I don't want you to feel deprived during this. So first is going to be the clean out. We got to make room before we start moving on, right? So don't go just pushing the cookies and crackers further back in there, because you know, and you alone know where they are, all right? It's just better, like I said, bag it all up. If it's still unopened, take it to a food bank, or give it away to somebody, something. But it's not going to be your friend if it's still hanging around. You are kind of I am a reflection of my environment. So if I set my environment up properly, then I can't make those poor choices as easily, okay? Because if there's a chocolate bar in my house, like, it's gone. And it's not like one square and I'll come back in a week. No, it's like demolished. So if you're the type of person who is either like a moderator, where you can kind of moderate your intake, great, that's awesome for you. But some people are better abstainers, and I would probably put myself in that category, where it's easier to say no to some of these things than to have it around and just saying, like, okay, is it time yet? No, okay. So the complete cupboard clean out is going to go over all the foods that might be in your closet or in your cupboards, in your refrigerator, and time to eat through it now, I guess, but I don't even like to tell you that. Darren's up here talking about meatballs and whatnot, and which are great. I mean, I love them. Again, Italian. But if you're like, oh, I got to get rid of this whole tray of cookies, I in good faith, I can't do that to you. Just don't do it. But you have a month, or you have a week rather. We're not starting this until next Tuesday. I want you to be hitting the ground running on this. So it's going to give you a couple things to do to restock your pantry with, and then also, this is a really I've gotten some good feedback on this as far as a matrix. So you can take something from the first column, combine it with something from the second column, cook it in one of these oils up here, and then you spice it with whatever your favorite is, and you can mix and match. I mean, if you tried to make your way through all of the different combinations, you'd probably not do it in this lifetime, maybe. So, but you could try. So again, first thing to focus on is that kind of proteins category, because you want to feel satiated after a meal. You don't want to be like, I just ate a full meal and now, like, when's dessert or when's my snack? So protein's going to help you with that. And so this is going to be in yours to look over. Let's go to the next slide. These are a couple of other helpful tools to have along the way. You don't have to have these, just like you don't have to have a glucometer, but slow cookers, really awesome. I mean, I use that thing probably 4 times a week of just set it and forget it, right? That whole Ronco infomercial thing, right? It really helps. I mean, I got to give it to the guy. But yeah, just a slow cooker. You can put one of those proteins in there, put a medley of vegetables in there, set it on low overnight. You wake up in the morning and you could have breakfast, lunch, and dinner if you like to eat the same thing over and over. Some of you do, some of you don't. But you can just meal prep, like 4 different meals right there, or a couple meals for multiple people with just that. And it's just a turn of a knob. Really, really easy. Some people love their Instant Pot. That's a really great one if you're making like soups and broths and things like that. You can go hog wild with that stuff, because you just kind of put everything all in there at once, close the lid, and it's done in a fraction of the time as the slow cooker. So another good option. You can, if you've maybe gone on these journeys before and you like to track your intake, you can use these apps. The cool thing about this reset is it's compatible with some of these things. MyFitnessPal is one of those out there. Chronometer is another one that allows you to say, okay, today I ate 4 ounces of steak and 2 ounces of broccoli and all that stuff. And it'll give you your calories and all that stuff. But you probably noticed by now, like, I haven't really talked about calories. And the reason for that is because we've been eating healthy way before we even knew what a calorie was. And calories are a great way to help you when you're in a bodybuilding contest and you're trying to shred or whatever you're trying to do and really lose weight that way. And it works for some people. It's great. But if we give our body whole foods, most of the time, you'll hit that satiety without gorging yourself on, like, again, a plate full of vegetables and chicken breast. You're a lot less likely to overeat those things, right? Because your body has these like little trackers it's keeping track of and says, oh, we have that nutrient, we have enough protein, et cetera, et cetera. We're good. Versus these modern foods, like the ones on the no list, you can mow through a Costco-sized thing of Doritos or whatever it is and be like, all right, that's hundreds of calories without any nutritional value to it. So that's why I'm not really focused on calories, right? So it works for some people, but for those of us who don't want to deal with that, don't worry about it. You don't have to. And then that goes along with a food scale. If you really want to know what you're doing, what you're putting in your body, you can do that. But again, I wouldn't even go that far when I'm doing this reset with you guys. It's just, hey, let's stick to the whole foods, and we don't have to worry about doing all the arithmetic. All right, we'll go to the next slide. This is what you're going to use to start testing your blood sugar this week, twice this week. You can refer to this on the website too. You're going to have a lot longer list of options for you. But again, we want to give your body about 50 grams of carbohydrates. It's all here. It's all measured out, so you can eyeball it or you can measure, how much you're cooking. And that way, you will test your blood sugar when you wake up in the morning. That's your AM fasting results. So you wake up, you haven't had anything since breakfast. Hopefully you're not like sleepwalking to the refrigerator or anything, but you've been fasting all overnight. You wake up, you can brush your teeth, whatever you want to do. You take your blood sugar. Okay, it's say 90. All right, awesome. Then you eat your meal, and you're going to wait 2 hours because we want to see your body metabolize that. And at the 2-hour mark, after you've put the fork down, then you test again, and that's what's going to give us your post-meal blood sugar, 2 hours. Okay, so we're just eating these carbohydrates. We want to see how your body alone responds to carbohydrates, because that's what's mostly affecting blood sugar. If you have it with a bunch of like butter or some kind of oil or fats with it, it's going to slow that digestion down. You might not get a really accurate reading. So a couple questions. You first?
Yeah, what if you don't eat in the morning? I have a protein drink in the morning. I don't eat.
Okay. Yeah, if you have a protein drink, that's still going to be considered calories. It's going to shift your metabolism. So if you don't eat in the morning, you're really not going to take anything in but water. Coffee is fine too because it's non-caloric. But you can skip that breakfast shake or smoothie or anything you need to, and your first meal of the day, I should say, will be your fasting number. So that could be around lunchtime if that works for you. Yep. Okay.
You mentioned water, and I've heard a number of things about how many ounces to your body weight, and should it be room temperature, cold?
Yeah.
How much of an impact does that have?
Okay. Yeah, the question was surrounding water. How much? Cold, warm? Hydration is an interesting one. If you're, sometimes they'll say like you need to eat or you need to consume 2 ounces per pound of body weight. Yes and no, but that seems like a lot for some people and not enough for others. It depends on your activity level. But the other thing too about activity level and just going throughout your day is you're sweating all the time, even if it's a little bit. And the hydration component mostly comes with electrolytes. And if we're drinking tons of water, we're actually diluting a lot of our really key electrolytes. I'm going to cover that in like one of the next modules, though. I want to make sure we get it in time. But yeah, it's a good question. Thank you. So that's what the carb test is going to look like. You have a sheet in there, and it has a little red banner on it, and it says, it's going to ask you some questions like, hey, how'd you sleep? How'd you do? Because all those things do affect your blood sugar. If you're like, I slept horribly, you just write it down. Just go, this is mostly for you. You don't have to share it with me. You don't have to share it with anybody else. But you're going to see, how your blood sugar is. And then next week, I'll go over what are some categories of what your blood sugar might look like. If it was high, that's what it might mean this. If it was really low, it might mean this. So I'll kind of give you some guidance through that. All right, let's go to the next slide. That's what it looks like, okay? So you're going to fill some of those top ones out. How many hours of sleep did you get? How many hours of fasting? So say you ate at 8 o'clock, and then, you're not going to eat breakfast until 8 a.m. when you wake up. That's 12 hours fasted. But you're probably not sleeping from 8 p.m. or 8 a.m. If you are, I'm really jealous of you, and I got to talk to my 7-month-old about that. So quality of sleep, just write good, great, terrible, horrible, whatever you want, so that you can look back at this at the end of the challenge. And then just write in there, the carb tested, Did you use white rice or one of the other options on the previous slide? You're going to test, again, right before you eat. So whether it's breakfast or whether it's lunch, as long as you haven't had any food or caloric drink other than like water or coffee, then you can test your AM fasting. You'll eat right after that, and then 2 hours later, you can take that second measurement. So you're doing this twice this week. You're going to take technically 4, right? 4 finger sticks because you're doing a fasting and a 2 hour, and then on a different day, it can be the next day, it can be a couple days later, another AM fasting and 2 hour. So pick your 4 favorite fingers or your, whatever, or you could do the same one. It doesn't matter, but we'll cover that. All right, let's go to the next slide. And so glucose monitoring. Let's talk about this. So 4 basic things. You're going to prep to begin with. You're going to gather your materials. Your lancets, you'll see, are these little white and purple lancets, a single-use little pinpricks. You'll hold it up to your finger. It's going to all be in this kind of video that will be online. And once you kind of hold it up, if you hold up your finger, you don't want to be right on the pad there, okay? That's where you touch things. That's where you touch things to feel and touch things that you need to sense. So you want to be on the sides. You're going to want to kind of come in at each side. There's less nerve endings. It's just not going to hurt as much. It's going to, trust me on that one. So you can do one of these things. After you wash your hands, you can kind of get the blood flow. If you have poor circulation or you're cold, kind of let it hang, swing, blood rushes down there. You can take it on any of these fingers. I recommend 1, 2, or 3 here because these we use a lot, right? And so middle, ring, pinky. Those are great. You come in from the side, you just hold it up there, and then you'll just push the little button, and you'll feel just a little finger prick. And you don't have to like really squeeze or milk it out unless you have poor circulation. But again, try to just get a little bit going beforehand. Once you do that, you'll see it surface. Some people like to wipe the first one beforehand and then take it, but it doesn't. It's just again, perfect is the enemy of good. Just take that. What you'll have is you'll have your glucometer, your little test strip in there, and the video will show you which end goes in. It's pretty straightforward. There's a little digital end to the stick, and then there's the little receptacle end on the other end of the stick. The little digital end goes into the meter, and it automatically turns the meter on. If any of you if it doesn't work, let me know. It might just be like a battery issue. I have extras, but yeah, just let me know. And once it's in there, it's automatically on. I like to have it right on the table there so that when I take my test, youch, just hold it up. And you kind of notice in this picture, you're not dabbing down on it, right? That's not what we want to do. We want to kind of come into your finger there because the end of the test strip is kind of like this, and the sample will kind of come in that way. It's not like we drop it on the top of the sample. Does that make sense? Okay, so just kind of coming in. I know I'm like explaining this like if I was explaining it to myself because I need that. All right, so you take your prick, you lance the finger, and you place that droplet onto the strip. I should change that into the strip. Be very precise. And then you're just gonna record that. And again, if you're like, I still don't get this, just follow along the video online, and it should be pretty clear. Let's go to the next one. I just threw these up here. This is like a lot of data and things. In case you're interested, current medical, conventional diagnosis of blood sugar and diabetes, they have a really wide goalposts. They're like, if you're under 100, you're good. But this is kind of a functional approach. This is like, hey, we want to see, like, if you're at like 99, you're not quite at 100, we're looking at preventing prediabetes and diabetes and blood sugar issues. So we want to catch those things. And that's what I'm going to go over more next week. I'm going to go over what we want to see in a more functional medicine kind of approach to this. We make those goalposts a little bit narrower to keep you in the optimal range. So that's what that's all about. All right, let's go to the next one. We only have a couple slides left. Thanks for hanging in there. Again, you can make your own sharps bin out of which is where you put your sharp ends into the little single-use push lancets. You can make your own out of like an old laundry detergent thing if you want. But again, I'll bring in a receptacle here. I'll just place it up at the front next time. You guys can kind of just drop that in like a little baggie or whatever you have, and I'll dispose of it. All right, next slide, please. Thank you. So next week, or this week rather. This week is, again, just to reiterate, you're going to read through those package, complete those things. Again, this is for you, right? These are your goals. You're the individual. So if your goal looks like, hey, I haven't been out of my house in a long time. I haven't even walked a block. If walking a block is the most you've done in a long time, write that down. If getting to one of those spin classes is on your list and you're kind of thinking about it and and it frightens you a little bit, that's kind of cool. Like, get outside your comfort zone. My wife Bria teaches, and she, it's like going to a club on a bike. Like the lights are going, there's music, people are just having a good time, like hooting and hollering. I'm like, oh yeah, I am working out, huh? Oh, I am just drenched in sweat. All right, cool. So it's like you almost forget about that because there's just such a cool vibe there. So yeah, these are your goals. Again, we're not looking for perfect. We're just looking for progress. And you're going to take those 2 meals, measure those, and record them. And then again, right now is the time to start cleaning out your cupboard or just mowing through some of those foods right now. And I think we're close to the end. Let me see. Okay, those are just some scientific references to bore you with. So thank you guys again. I'm really excited for you. I'll hang out here if there are any more questions. Just kind of catch me down here. Before you leave, just grab one bag. Again, if you have 2 people who you're doing this together with, you can still use one. There's enough test strips in there, enough lancets. So this is enough for 2 people, and hopefully that helps you out. So,
thanks, Matt. I really only have one question. Two things. It feels like you're saying, if I can find a cow, like, this is okay. Like, I can do that.
Yeah, you'll be all right.
And the second question is a hot dog meat? Is that?
Oh, I can't. I'm going to plead the fifth on that one. I have no idea.
I don't think a hot dog is meat. Hey, real quick before we go, so Matt has already pre-purchased all these for us, which means you spent a small fortune. They're about $35 each, is that right? Ish? $40 each?
Yeah, we're covering whatever's beyond
70,
$35.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what we'd love for you to do, New Vintage, we're going to pay him back $35 times whatever the number is that we give. And anything you guys would be willing to do to help that. If you can't do 35 and you need one today, just take it. But if you can help with $35, it's really easy to do it. You could just go to the normal way you would give to New Vintage, which is just go to newvintage.org/give and give $35. That's all you have to do. You can do it online, on your computer, on your phone. You can drop $35 tonight in the offering buckets at the back. There's envelopes here if you want to do it like that. If you can't, if you were expecting this to not be something that costs you anything, that's okay. I like to have you have a little bit of skin in the game, because that which costs nothing is worth nothing. And so if it costs you a little bit, you use it a little bit more. If it, you don't want to go, I paid $35 for this thing and I'm not even touching it. So you want a little bit of skin in the game. Doesn't hurt anybody. So that's the price if you can. If you can't, that's okay too. And then I think that's it for tonight. Good luck. If you have questions, Matt will be down here. Make sure you grab one, and it's going to be a great week.
Place next week. So 6 o'clock next
see you
week
next
too.
week.
All right, guys. Thanks, Darren.
I'm going to get one right now. One second. Hey, if you're watching online, you're thinking to yourself, well, how do I get a kit? And you're like, where did you guys go? Where's my kit? How do I get one? We'll be here at church. We'll have them available if you need them, but call us or email us beforehand just to make sure they're not all gone yet, and we'll order more if we need more. All right? Thanks for watching. See you.